raised my daughter for 16 years, paid for it all, and called her my biggest blessing, until I heard my wife whisper, "He can never know the truth." One DNA test later, my world fell apart. And so did our marriage. She just cried, it was only one mistake. But that mistake took everything from me. My entire world shattered into a million pieces, not with a bang, but with 8 quiet words whispered behind a closed door. In that moment, the man I thought I was vanished, and I knew everything was about to change forever. It was a Thursday evening, just like any other. I'd walked in from work, tossed my keys into the bowl by the door, the comforting smell of Samantha's chicken marsala already filling the air. Chloe was in her room, earbuds in, probably studying. Everything felt normal. Peaceful. I even paused to smile at a framed photo in the hallway. It's the 3 of us at Chloe's 8th grade graduation, all grins and sunshine. A perfect family. But then I passed the kitchen. Samantha's voice, low and sharp. I paused. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, not really, but there was something in her tone, tight, nervous, that just stopped me cold. She can never know the truth, and neither can he, especially not him. I froze. Those words hit me like ice water. A quiet sniffle, then the sentence that would flip my entire existence inside out. It was only one mistake. One, but it changed everything. My heart actually stuttered. I backed away slowly, careful not to make a sound. I don't know why I didn't burst in right then. Maybe some part of me already knew. Maybe I needed a moment to pretend I'd misheard, or maybe I just wasn't ready to watch my whole life burn down in front of me. That night, I acted normal. I smiled through dinner, complimented the chicken, even laughed at Chloe's joke about her math teacher. I felt like a ghost in my own home. Every smile from Samantha felt like a lie. Every glance across the table was suddenly filled with a venom I couldn't even place yet. After Chloe went to bed, I tried to ask Samantha casually who she'd been talking to earlier. Her face changed, just barely, but I caught it, that flicker of panic behind her eyes. "Oh, just my sister," she said. "She's going through something messy with Marcus again, you know how it is." I nodded slowly. I knew her sister well. I also knew she was in Sonoma on a yoga retreat with no phone access until Sunday. I didn't press it. Not yet. Instead, I stayed up that night, staring at the ceiling, the weight of those words on repeat in my mind. She can never know. And neither can he. Who was she? Chloe? Was she talking about our daughter? And what was this truth I wasn't supposed to know? The next day, I couldn't concentrate at work. I kept replaying moments in my mind, odd conversations from the past, weird silences, times Samantha had shut down a topic before it even started. My mind became a projector of suspicion. I remembered a moment from years ago, Chloe was maybe 3, when Samantha got weirdly tense after someone joked about how Chloe looked nothing like me. I'd brushed it off. Kids change, right? But now, I went down a rabbit hole. I searched how to tell if a child is biologically yours. I found forums, stories, Reddit posts, guys with smiling daughters and broken hearts. I started seeing Chloe's features through a different lens, her hazel eyes, her narrow chin, not mine. Samantha had blue eyes, too. I told myself I was crazy, paranoid, overthinking, but something in me wouldn't let it go. So, I ordered a DNA kit, one of those over-the-counter ones people use for ancestry. I felt disgusted doing it, like I was betraying Chloe, invading her privacy, but the doubt was louder than the guilt. I waited until she had a sleepover at her friend's place, then quietly took a sample from her old toothbrush. My hands were shaking the whole time. I told myself it would come back fine, that I'd laugh at myself for being so dramatic. It didn't come back fine. The results arrived on Tuesday. I sat in the garage, the only place I could be truly alone, and opened the email on my phone. There was no match. 0% paternity probability. I reread it 3 times. Then again. I couldn't breathe. It felt like my lungs had turned to stone. 16 years. 16 birthdays, 16 Christmas mornings, band recitals, scraped knees, daddy-daughter dances, gone. Just like that, in one sentence. And worse than that, I had to walk back into the house and pretend I didn't know, because I needed answers first. Real ones. That night, Samantha asked me why I looked tired. I told her I was just swamped at work. She kissed me on the cheek and said she was proud of me. I almost laughed in her face, but I didn't. Because now I had a new mission, a quiet one. I was going to find out the full truth. Every piece, every lie, every little betrayal she tucked behind a smile. And when I had it all, I was going to make her watch it burn. But first, I needed to figure out who else knew, because something told me Samantha wasn't the only one keeping secrets. And I wasn't going to let this one mistake ruin me without a fight. You don't build a life for 16 years and just walk away. Not without answers, not without justice, not without revenge. And that's when everything started to spiral. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after. I kept going through the motions, trying to act normal, but inside it felt like I was living underwater, numb, slow, disconnected from everything. I'd sit at the dinner table watching Samantha cut vegetables or Chloe scrolling through her phone, and I'd wonder, when did my life become someone else's script? The hardest part wasn't the betrayal, it was the love. I still loved Chloe. Every time she laughed or called me a pops, my heart would crack a little more. That wasn't fake. That was real. And it made everything 10 times more painful, because even though my DNA wasn't in her, my soul was. I had raised her. I had kissed her forehead every night. I had sat beside her in the when she broke her wrist falling off the monkey bars. I had cried the first time she sang in front of a crowd. That doesn't disappear overnight. But there was a new, quiet ache under everything. Now I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Watching Samantha, listening to how she spoke to Chloe, how she shut down certain topics. I started digging through old boxes in the attic when they were out. I found Chloe's birth certificate. My name was on it, but something was off, just a gut feeling. I called the hospital to request old records. I used my job email and acted like I needed documentation for a medical form. They said it would take a few days, so I waited. But while I waited, something else happened. Something that changed everything. It started small. Samantha's attitude shifted. She became distant, snappier, like she was carrying something, too. Maybe she sensed I was pulling away. Or maybe she had guilt bubbling to the surface. One night, I came home late from work and found her sitting alone in the dark living room, wine glass half full, just staring at the TV. "You okay?" I asked, setting down my bag. She didn't look up. "Just tired. Long day." She took a slow sip. "You've been acting different lately, Ethan." I tensed. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," she said. "You're quieter. Like, you're mad at me." That was the moment I wanted to lay it all out. Show her the email. Tell her I knew. But I didn't, because I wasn't done. I needed more. So, I shrugged and said, "Just stressed. Lot going on at the firm." She didn't press, but she didn't look convinced either. Then came the next shift, the favoritism. And this time, I couldn't ignore it. Chloe started pulling away from me, subtle at first, shorter conversations, more time in her room, less laughter at my dad jokes. I thought maybe it was teen stuff, she was 16 after all. But then one night, I came home to find Samantha and Chloe whispering in the kitchen. When they noticed me, they both stopped talking immediately. "Hey," I said casually. "What's going on?" "Nothing," Samantha said too quickly. "Just talking about school." Chloe avoided my eyes. "Yeah, just boring stuff." I didn't push, but it ate at me. The next day, I came home early. I had a headache and figured I'd get some rest. As I walked up the front steps, I heard voices through the open kitchen window. "He's been weird lately," Chloe said. "Like, super intense." Samantha replied, "He's probably just going through something. You know how your dad gets. He canceled our beach trip again." My stomach dropped. I hadn't canceled anything. We had never even planned a beach trip. I stepped back from the window quietly and drove around the block until I could come in without suspicion. But now I knew something was happening. Something more than just one lie. Samantha was planting seeds, turning Chloe against me slowly, gently. And it was working. That weekend, Chloe skipped our usual Saturday pancakes and went out with friends. No.
Bye.
Pops, no hug. I tried not to let it sting. Then came the birthday. Chloe's 17th was coming up in a month. I had been quietly planning a surprise for over a year, a used Toyota Corolla I'd been fixing up in a buddy's garage. Her dream color, seafoam green, low mileage, safe, affordable. She talked about it non-stop the summer before, even made a Pinterest board with her favorite models. I wanted her to have something special, something from me. The plan was to reveal it with a big bow on the driveway, just like in the movies. I even wrote a goofy card that said, "Don't crash into any mailboxes. Love, Pops." But one afternoon, I overheard Samantha on the phone again. I told him not to go overboard, she was saying. She's not even his daughter. He's doing this to feel better about himself. I stood frozen in the hallway. My ears were ringing. I know. I'm going to handle it. He needs to let go. It's not healthy. Let go. I should have confronted her, but instead I walked into the garage and stared at the car for over an hour. My gift, my final thread of connection, now twisted into some kind of delusion in her eyes. That night, I went out to the fire pit in our backyard, lit a cigar I'd been saving for months, and stared at the stars. I felt hollow, like I was grieving someone who was still alive, not just Samantha, but Chloe. And worse, I felt like they were both slipping through my fingers and I couldn't do a thing about it. A week later, the records arrived from the hospital. I flipped through them slowly, heart pounding, and there it was, Chloe's birth admission form. Mother, Samantha Holt. Father, blank. No mention of me. No record of my signature. Nothing. I couldn't breathe. 16 years. And my name was never on the original form. Samantha had added me later, quietly, conveniently, probably to make things cleaner. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the paper like it was a death certificate, and that's when I made the decision. I printed everything, the DNA results, the hospital forms. I laid them out neatly in a manila folder and set it in my office drawer. Because this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about the story she was spinning, the lies she was still feeding Chloe. She didn't just cheat on me. She rewrote history and cast me as the fool, the sucker, the backup plan. And I wasn't going to let her walk away clean. But I wasn't ready yet, because there was one more betrayal coming. One final blow that would take everything I had left and light it on fire. It happened on a Thursday. Again. I had taken the day off. I told Samantha I had a client meeting out of town, I just needed space, time to think. But around 2 p.m., I got hungry and stopped at a little diner 10 minutes from home. And that's where I saw them. Samantha and a man I didn't recognize sitting in a booth, talking quietly, too close. I pulled into the parking lot across the street and watched. They weren't touching, but their body language told me everything. He leaned in. She touched his wrist. She smiled the way she used to when we first dated. I took out my phone, snapped a few photos, then drove home. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I just sat at the kitchen table with the folder in front of me, staring out the window, and I realized something. I didn't know who Samantha was. I didn't know who I was to Chloe anymore. And I didn't know what kind of hell I'd just been dragged into. But I did know this, they had taken everything from me. And I was going to make them regret it. Every lie, every whisper, every stolen year. But first, I needed to hear it from her lips. I needed Samantha to say it, to admit everything. And when she did, that's when the mask would finally fall. When Samantha finally walked through the door that night, the sun was already dipping below the horizon. Golden light filtered through the kitchen blinds, casting long shadows across the floor. She looked surprised to see me home early, but she played it off with that same calm smile she'd worn for years, the one I now saw as nothing more than a mask. "You're home early," she said, setting her purse down and walking over to the fridge like it was any other day. "I thought you were out of town." "I finished early," I said flatly, not looking up from the table. She paused, sensing something in my tone. Her hand froze on the fridge handle. I wanted to confront her right then, pull out the folder, lay it on the table, and demand answers. But I didn't. Because something in me, something old, wounded, and quiet, realized that whatever explanation she gave wouldn't make it better. It wouldn't bring back the years I'd lost. It wouldn't put my name on that birth certificate. It wouldn't change the DNA results. It wouldn't unmake the fact that I had been a father and now I wasn't. At least, not in her eyes. So, I did nothing. And that was the beginning of the fall. The days that followed were quiet in a way I had never known before. Not peaceful, but empty. The kind of quiet that creeps into your bones and makes the walls feel like they're pressing inward. Chloe barely spoke to me. When she did, it was quick and polite, detached. It killed me. I'd spent 16 years being her everything, and now I was background noise. Samantha, for her part, became strangely cheerful, like a weight had lifted. She started going out more, meeting friends, staying up late with wine and her phone glowing in her hand. She never said it, but I knew she was already moving on. Probably had been for months. I moved into the guest room. No fight, no screaming match, just a quiet shift. I packed my clothes, toothbrush, and a few books into a box and carried them down the hall. She watched me do it. Never said a word. That silence cut deeper than any argument could. I stopped working on the car. I couldn't even look at it without feeling sick. The surprise, the bow, the card, all of it sat in the garage like a monument to a dream that never existed. I stopped shaving, skipped a few days of work. My boss noticed, called me into his office. "You good, Ethan?"
Yeah.
"Just tired." He didn't push, but I could tell he knew something was off. It wasn't until the third day of microwave dinners and unanswered text messages from Chloe that I finally broke. I was in the garage again, staring at the Corolla, when I saw the card I'd written, "Don't crash into any mailboxes. Love, Pops." I picked it up, read it, and felt this cold wave crash over me. My knees gave out. I sat on the floor and cried. Not loud, not messy, just quiet, aching sobs that felt like they'd been building for years. That was rock bottom. But here's the thing about rock bottom. Once you're there, you have a choice. You can stay, or you can crawl out. I started with small things. I shaved, took a real shower, made an actual breakfast instead of cereal. I opened my laptop and sent in a few project updates, and then I went for a walk. No destination, just movement. Something about putting one foot in front of the other felt necessary. I walked past the park where I used to take Chloe as a kid. I stood outside the bakery she loved, remembered how we used to get chocolate croissants on Sundays. I passed the school where I'd sat through a dozen talent shows, cheering louder than anyone else. Everywhere I went, I saw echoes of a life that was slipping through my fingers. But instead of crumbling, something inside me started to harden. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. I realized I had spent 16 years giving everything. And in return, I'd been lied to, used, rewritten. But that didn't mean I had to disappear. So, I made a plan. The first part, legal clarity. I scheduled a consultation with a family law attorney, a woman named Sarah Reynolds. Tough as nails. I liked her immediately. I walked into her office with my folder, set it down, and said, "I need to know where I stand." She read through the documents silently, her brow furrowing. When she finished, she leaned back and asked, "Do you want to fight for custody?" That word hit me like a slap. Custody. She's 16. She's not mine. Sarah gave me a look. That's not what matters. What matters is the relationship, the precedent. 16 years of parenting. Courts take that seriously. The legal father is the one listed on the birth certificate. And unless that's challenged in court, you're still considered her parent. If you want to maintain a relationship, you have options. I sat with that for a long time. Did I want to keep fighting to be in Chloe's life? Yes, of course. But I also knew the damage had been done. Samantha had poisoned the well. Chloe looked at me differently now, and I wasn't sure if anything I said could undo that. Still, I asked Sarah to draft the necessary paperwork. Not to sue Samantha, not yet, but to protect myself, to document everything just in case. The second part of my plan was harder. I needed to rebuild myself. Not the image of who I was or who I thought I should be, but the actual core of me. The man beneath the title a dad. The man I'd lost somewhere along the way. So, I started therapy, first reluctantly, then with purpose. My therapist, Dr. Miller, didn't coddle me. He asked hard questions, made me sit with ugly truths, forced me to unpack things I'd buried under years of responsibility and sacrifice. You didn't fail, he told me one session. You were deceived. That's not the same. But I still feel like I lost my daughter, I said. Because you loved her like a father. That doesn't go away. But you need to separate your pain from your identity. You're more than what you gave them. That line stuck with me. You're more than what you gave them. I started journaling, hiking, cooking real meals. I fixed up an old bike and started riding again like I used to in college. I reconnected with an old friend from my engineering program. We grabbed coffee, laughed about stupid things from the past. I wasn't healed, but I was healing. One evening, a few weeks into this quiet rebuilding, I ran into Chloe by accident. She was at the grocery store with a friend. I almost turned and walked out, but she saw me. Hey, she said awkwardly. Hey. Her friend drifted away to the snack aisle, sensing the tension. Chloe tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You look different. Yeah, I said. I guess I've been trying to figure some things out. She nodded, bit her lip. Mom said you're moving out soon. I hadn't made that decision yet. But of course, Samantha was already planting the idea. I'm thinking about it, I said. Gives everyone space. Chloe looked down. I didn't mean for things to get weird. They're not your fault, I said gently. None of this is. She looked up then, really looked at me, and for a second, I saw my little girl again. The one who used to fall asleep on my chest during thunderstorms. I missed the pancakes, she said quietly. I smiled. Me, too. And then she walked away. No hug, no tears, but a small crack in the wall. And I clung to it like a lifeline. Back at home, Samantha was getting bolder. I knew she was still seeing the man from the diner, Michael. She didn't hide it, late texts, secretive calls, excuses that didn't line up. One night, I overheard her on the phone again. I think he's finally accepting it, she was saying. He's been so quiet. I think he'll just leave. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because the third part of my plan was almost ready. And when it hit, Samantha wouldn't be the one writing the story anymore. I would. But before I could act, something else happened. Something that pulled the rug out from under me all over again. And this time, it came from Chloe. I was still holding on to the weight of Chloe's words from the grocery store. I missed the pancakes. It wasn't an apology or even a real olive branch, but it was something. A crack in the fortress Samantha had built around her. I clung to that moment like it meant everything, because in a way, it did. It told me Chloe wasn't completely gone. There was still a thread of the girl I raised. But I also knew it wasn't enough to just wait for her to come around. I had to act, and I had to be smart about it, because Samantha wasn't going to just walk away clean. She'd spent months, maybe years, laying her groundwork, rewriting the past, making me look unstable, obsessive, maybe even dangerous. She hadn't directly accused me of anything yet, but I could feel the narrative shifting. I was no longer Ethan, the steady provider. Now I was Ethan, the guy who's having a hard time. Ethan, who moved into the guest room. Ethan, who's always home but never present. And Chloe, she was caught in the middle, swimming in carefully planted seeds of doubt. So I started my own quiet operation. The first step was digital. I began backing up everything: emails, texts, shared calendars, anything that painted a picture of me being a present, involved father and husband. Samantha had always liked controlling the story, but I had receipts, hundreds of them. I printed photos of vacations, birthdays, little moments, and labeled each one with the date and location. It felt obsessive at first, but I knew it was necessary. If this ever went legal, I needed to show that I hadn't been some absent figure. I was there. Always. The second step was subtle surveillance. I placed a small voice-activated recorder in my home office. Not to catch her having an affair, I didn't care about that anymore. What I wanted was her language, the way she talked about me when I wasn't around, how she twisted things, what she was telling Chloe. I also installed a basic security camera outside the house and one in the garage. The garage was where I spent most of my time now, tinkering with Chloe's car, slowly bringing it back to life. It was therapy, but also strategy. That car would become important. Then came the allies. I reached out to a few people quietly. My older sister, Olivia, who had always sensed something was off about Samantha, but never said much. She lived an hour away, but we'd always been close, and she adored Chloe. "I need your help," I told her over coffee one Saturday morning. She listened as I laid it all out: the DNA test, the hospital records, the photos from the diner. I expected her to gasp or shake her head, but instead she just let out a long sigh. "I always had a feeling," she said quietly. "Not about Chloe, not really. Just about Samantha. She always treated you like you were on borrowed time." I nodded. "I think she's setting me up, slowly." "Then we don't let her," Olivia said. "You've got me now. And whatever you need, I'm in." It felt good to hear that. I wasn't alone. Olivia offered to keep some of my backups at her place: paperwork, recordings, hard drives. She even talked to a friend who worked in family law about what to expect if Samantha tried to file for sole custody or accuse me of being unfit. "She won't win," Olivia said. "Not with everything you've got." I wanted to believe that. But I also knew how easily people believe the first story they hear, especially when it comes from a calm, composed woman like Samantha against a man who's recently moved into the guest room and is always quiet. I kept my head down, played the part, friendly but distant, polite but unreachable. And then something happened that gave me the perfect opening. Samantha left her phone on the kitchen counter while she took a call outside. Normally, I wouldn't have touched it, but something nudged me. A gut instinct. I tapped the screen. No password. Messages open to a conversation with someone labeled Michael. It was him, the man from the diner. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. "Michael, did you tell him yet?" "Samantha, not yet. He's been too quiet. I think he suspects something." "Michael, maybe it's time to push him out. He can't stay in the house forever." "Samantha, he'll leave. He always does the honorable thing." I stared at that word, honorable, like it was a weakness, like it was a flaw she was counting on. Not this time. I snapped photos of the messages and backed them up to my drive. The next day, I called Sarah Reynolds, my lawyer. "I want to start moving assets," I told her quietly. "Legally." She didn't even blink. "I thought you might." We updated my will. Changed my direct deposit. I moved some funds into a private account in my name only. Nothing shady, just protective. I even restructured the deed to the house. Samantha didn't know this, but when we bought it, I had used a large inheritance from my grandfather as the down payment, and the house was technically in a trust with my name on it. She was listed as a resident, but not an owner. It was time to leverage that. Sarah helped me file a motion to clarify ownership, citing the original trust and documentation. She was cautious, but confident. "It won't give you full control immediately," she said. "But it'll give you leverage, especially if she tries to force you out." I was building my fortress, brick by brick. And then Chloe found out. I don't know how. Maybe Samantha told her. Maybe she overheard something. But one evening, she came into the garage where I was working on the Corolla, arms crossed, jaw tight. "Why are you trying to take the house from Mom?" she demanded. I looked up, wiping my hands on a rag. "I'm not taking anything. I'm protecting myself." That's not what she said. Of course, it wasn't. She said, "You're being paranoid, that you think everyone's out to get you." I set the rag down and took a breath. "Chloe, I can't make you believe me, but I've never lied to you. Not once. Can you say the same for her?" She didn't answer, just stared at me like she didn't know who I was anymore. And it crushed me, but I didn't react. I didn't beg. I didn't lecture. I just handed her the keys to the Corolla. "It's not ready yet," I said. "But when it is, it's yours. No matter what happens between me and your mom." She took the keys slowly. Her fingers brushed mine, and for a moment, just a flicker, her eyes softened. Then she turned and walked back into the house. I sat in that garage for a long time after, not crying, not angry, just planning. Because now I had everything in place, the documents, the recordings, the legal protections, and something even more valuable, patience. I knew Samantha. I knew she couldn't help herself. She'd push too far, get too confident, say something she couldn't take back. And when she did, I'd be ready. I wasn't just protecting myself anymore. I was preparing for war. And she had no idea what was coming. Samantha's downfall started, fittingly, on a Sunday morning, the same kind of morning we used to spend curled up on the couch with Chloe, watching cartoons, and sipping bad coffee. But this time, I wasn't making pancakes. I was waiting. I had spent weeks tightening every screw in my plan. No impulsive moves, no emotional outbursts, just quiet, methodical preparation. Samantha was still under the illusion that I was fading away, the weak, honorable man who would eventually pack his bags and vanish so she could move Michael into my house and finish rewriting the past. But I wasn't gone. I had just learned to stop playing her game and start playing mine. Everything hinged on timing. It had to look effortless, organic, like justice just happened to catch up with her. And it started with a dinner invite. I told Samantha I wanted to cook something nice. One last family meal before we sat down to figure things out. I pitched it like a peace offering. She raised an eyebrow but agreed. Chloe seemed skeptical but curious. I told her I'd be grilling steak, her favorite. That sealed it. What Samantha didn't know was that I had already hired a private investigator. A good one. Not to trail her anymore, I already had enough of her texts with Michael to sink a ship. No, I hired him for one reason, to find out who Chloe's biological father was. And he found him. His name was Daniel Evans. Samantha had listed him as an emergency contact on a medical form when Chloe was 2 and then crossed it out and replaced it with mine. I guess she figured no one would ever dig that deep. But he still lived 2 towns over. He worked at a car dealership. He was married now with 2 other kids. And best of all, he had no idea Chloe existed. So I made contact. I didn't lead with the scandal. I reached out respectfully, asked if we could talk privately, said it was regarding something personal. He agreed to meet for coffee. When I told him, his face went white. He looked like he'd been sucker punched. "She never told me," he said, shaking his head. I had no idea. I mean, it was just a few months. I didn't even know she was pregnant. I believed him. The shock was too raw, too real. She's 16 now, I said. Smart, kind. She deserves to know the truth. He nodded slowly. I'd want to meet her, but only if she wants that. I told him we'd cross that bridge later, but for now, I had what I needed. I asked him one last favor, and he agreed. Sunday dinner rolled around. I grilled the steaks. I made roasted potatoes, even opened the expensive wine Samantha had been saving for a special occasion. It was, after all, about to be the most memorable dinner of her life. Chloe sat at the table, quiet but watching me carefully. Samantha made small talk, asking about work, smiling like nothing in the world was off. The fake warmth was almost admirable. Then the doorbell rang. Samantha frowned. Are we expecting someone? I shrugged, walking over. Just a little surprise guest. I opened the door. Daniel stepped in. Samantha's face drained of color the second she saw him. Chloe looked between them, confused. Who's that? Samantha stood up slowly. Ethan, what are you doing? I didn't answer her. I looked straight at Chloe. This is Daniel Evans, I said gently. He's someone your mom knew a long time ago. Chloe blinked. Okay. I sat down, motioning for Daniel to do the same. He looked nervous, but calm. The kind of calm that only comes from knowing the truth is finally coming out. Samantha took a step forward. Ethan, don't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said. I just thought Chloe deserved to know who her father is. Chloe froze. What? Dead silence. Samantha's lips parted, but no words came out. Just this faint, breathy sound. She looked like a balloon slowly deflating. I didn't mean for you to find out this way, she finally whispered. I looked at Chloe. Her eyes were wide, filling with tears. What does he mean, Mom? Samantha turned to her, reaching out. Sweetheart, please. Chloe backed away. I trusted you, she said, her voice shaking. You told me he was my dad. You let me call him Pops. I didn't know what to do, Samantha stammered. It was just one mistake. But you lied to me. Chloe snapped. My whole life. She turned to me. When did you find out? Not long ago, I said quietly. I didn't want to hurt you. I just needed the truth. Chloe sat down, stunned. She looked at Daniel. You're really? He nodded. I only just found out, too. I swear, if I'd known, I need to go, she said, standing up abruptly. I need some air. She left through the front door. I let her go. Samantha stood frozen in the kitchen, and I turned to her. You don't get to play the victim anymore, I said. You lied to me for 17 years. You stole my family, my identity. You let me pour my life into Chloe, knowing the truth the whole time. Her hands trembled. Ethan, I never meant for it to go this far. It was one night. We weren't even married yet. We were engaged, I said flatly. You made a vow, and then buried the truth. You made me build a life on a lie. She sank into a chair, finally realizing that the game was over. But I wasn't done. The next day, I filed a motion with the court. I wasn't asking for custody. I was asking for a declaration of non-paternity and legal damages. Sarah handled everything, the documentation, the evidence, the years of texts and photos, the trust deed on the house. Every thread I had pulled together now formed a noose. Samantha tried to fight it for about a week. She claimed emotional distress. She begged me not to take legal action. I didn't budge. In mediation, I calmly laid everything out. She looked like a ghost. The house. Legally mine. The trust document sealed it. The car? I finished restoring it and gave it to Chloe quietly, with no conditions. The marriage officially dissolved. The judge signed off on the divorce 30 days later. Samantha walked away with nothing but her own last name and a messy reputation. Word got around, not because I said anything, but because people talk. The truth has a way of bubbling up. Daniel eventually reached out to Chloe. They started talking, slowly, carefully. He wasn't trying to replace me, and I appreciated that. As for me, I rebuilt my life. Not all at once, but steadily. Chloe and I kept in touch. She'd come over sometimes on Sundays. Still loved pancakes. Still called me Pops when no one else was around. I never corrected her. Never will. Because being her father wasn't about DNA. It was about showing up every day, no matter what. And that's exactly what I did. Samantha lost everything because she underestimated the one man who refused to quit loving the girl she tried to use as leverage. She thought I'd leave quietly. She thought I'd roll over and let her rewrite the truth. She forgot who raised Chloe. She forgot who I am. But now, she remembers, and so will everyone. If you were me, how would you have found the strength to move forward?